to another Sonic Lab. This is the sound of the SOMA Laboratories Cosmos, which is called a drifting memory station. I was trying to do a kind of vibey, Frippatronics, kind of gong-like Steve Hillage psychedelic bed, and that's kind of what this device is for, really. It's called a drifting memory station. It looks like a looper. It's not really a looper. It's got several algorithms in it. That one was the dual delay algorithm, which means that we've got basically two loopers, slightly different length, and they just interact with each other. So we ended up with this constantly moving kind of bed. It's very hard to predict. Now, the other thing that's really hard to predict is the record time is not based on when you're in record and when you come out of record. It's based on the actual length of the memory that's left. So in terms of a looper, it's actually very non-traditional, which is no surprising. I mean, Vlad Kreimer is kind of a very non-traditional sort of designer. In fact, if I quote from the manual, the Cosmos is a drifting memory station designed to work with meditative states through music. The design of the controls, functions and generated soundscapes are intended to evoke both in performer and listener states of experiences inherent in meditation. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. It's not really designed, as the present firmware stands, as a kind of traditional looper, allowing you to create rhythmic loops and then add and sound on them. And you just build these textures in it based on the algorithms. First algorithm is two delays that are offset from each other. Maximum sample time is around about 20 seconds, I believe, in the largest. Then we've got a 4 times one. If I just remove this, and I'll just, I mean, probably the easiest thing is if I just record a kind of really basic note. So I'll take these down. Let's just go to a sort of so you can hear that's not looping in the way I thought it would. They're a sort of offsetting and then moving around. If we take the blur control then cross feedbacks between them, so we end up with these kind of larger rhythms. Drift moves those delay times around, so eventually where we'll end up with is a sort of almost like a granular texture. This has got rhythm in it just purely because it's got clicks on the front of the note. If I hit reverse, I can also drive it a bit harder, which gives just a little bit of drive into it. Feedback, if I was around to naught, this will eventually die off. It's very slow, so it doesn't become a looper. It starts to become a looper around about just before 1, and then as we grow higher, it grows in strength. I mean, like I said, very non-traditional, very unusual. Bit more about the hardware. We've got stereo in and a stereo out. Not really nice construction, as with all of their stuff. Nice chicken head knob here. These buttons are easily pressable with just with your fingers or with feet, so it could live on the floor or on the desk. Simple basic functions: pressing a raise or raise the loop, pressing a momentary. We've got reverse, then we've got these little filters, high pass filter and low pass filter, that just sort of cut off the top and the low end in the loop, so that we can, if we end up with a sort of massive bassy thing, we can just roll it off a little bit. More on the algorithms. Here's a 4-tap algorithm. I'll just do a similar thing where I just press a couple of notes. This is a bit of a longer delay. You can hear now they're all starting to interact again, so we've got 4 separate delays effectively. Then we've got this mode, which is supposed to be a sort of giant cavernous hall. In fact, the manual again states that it's up to 20 kilometers in length. So the idea is these reflections. I guess these are digital algorithms, but there's a lot of analog going on in here. I'm not entirely sure which is which. I do know that there are plans to update the firmware and make it a bit more of a traditional looper. So perhaps allowing for, setting the time and whatnot, but that's some way off. I don't know exactly what that might or might not be, or when it might happen. But if we look back here, so this is like a reverb. So again, I'll just come into record. Incidentally, I'm using the Uno Synth Pro here, which is actually Now I remember, a really nice sounding synth. I'm going to try, let's start with a basic sound. I've got this sort of sync sound, so I'm just going to go and I'm selecting the smallest one, which is a very large hall, Supermat. It gets to sort of ridiculous sound, so you can get an idea of what's going on here. So. Now what's happening is it's just building up this kind of series of early reflections that eventually turns into this massive reverb. These knobs don't have any effect on this. It's not necessarily a traditional reverb. If I take that out, it's more of a kind of wash, so it kind of creates this granular wash. If I go to this sound, it probably make it a bit more just sort of vibey, so let's just play this one. And you can hear there's just this sort of, it's kind of good for those frozen, you know, my kind of frozen stuff. So now if I play another sound over the top of this, let's see what I can find. Just really nice. Not really so much of a traditional reverb, but it's got a very different flavour to the other settings. The next algorithm is a kind of granular delay. So if I press record here, come out of record. Now, these knobs, which generally affect the algorithms, they don't work the same for every algorithm. This will scan me through that recorded. This will modulate. Interesting. It sort of feels like that some of these would benefit from a reverb afterwards. In fact, a lot of the demos of this actually have the reverb, have a secondary reverb after the Cosmos, so you can create even more ambient wash. I mean, I think, to be fair, it's the sort of thing that's really good fun to play with. As far as musical applications, it seems quite niche, you know. It's not, because it's not destined for rhythmical, repeatable stuff. It's got this kind of, it's a bit of a zone out sort of ambient machine. So as such, it's quite hard to review in terms of musical applications, but you can get into some lovely textures. So I'll just go back here and we'll demonstrate a couple more features. We've also got a high pass and a low pass filter, which is the feed, it's go into the delay. So if I record, let's see, find the sound here. Let's try this one. This one sounds nice. So I'm just going to record my... Now, if I think that's a bit too thick, I can put a high pass filter across it. And I can have medium or high, so I can really thin it out. And by the same token, if I find another sound that's perhaps a bit toppier, I'm recording this. I can put a low pass filter across it. And again, in different levels of top end attenuation. We've also got, did I say, I've also got the ability to reverse. So again, if I go to a sound that's perhaps a bit more attacky, go into reverse. Now I can add some other sounds on top of this. And I've got suppress, so it'll mean This is getting kind of trippy. And I can bring the compression, which will even out the sounds, because I'm still in record. Interesting. All right, this is a vibe that I would never have discovered myself. So now I can. I'm playing over the top of this. I mean, I like it, I'm just not sure how I could use it. Oh, yeah. And this is where this box really sort of excels, I would say, in its ability to just sort of get you into this zone. And my advice to you is record, record, record. Incidentally, if you're a Patreon supporter, I'll put some of this noodling up. And I can now dub maybe some of this on top. I quite like. Record a bit more, maybe some low stuff in here. So now I kind of replaced that bit. I've sort of gradually faded that, replaced it with the new. Got a few more notes in there. If I wanted a bit more notes in there, I can change it in real time. It does have unexpected results. Right, this is getting a bit mad. Yeah, anyway, it's a great way to eat up a lot of time, and it's a great way also to maybe throw some musical stuff at yourself that you weren't expecting. The flash drive is not, or rather excitingly, for dumping the memory onto it. It's purely for updating the firmware. In fact, they're very, very clear. Do not plug anything else other than a correctly formatted flash drive in here. You may damage the operating system. So yes, don't try and do anything fancy with that, but that's what this is for. So maybe the thing to do is to play a few more kind of sounds into it, so you just kind of get an idea of where this can take you. It is, like I say, very interesting. It's just not probably what you'd expect, which, like I say, is the case with many of Vlad's things. So they are designed to sort of steer you into mental states. I mean, he's very keen on these sort of meditative states and sort of getting into the zone and getting into the flow, removing the complexity of equipment from getting between your creative brain and what your hands need to do. So here's another little example of how we can build stuff up. I'm just going to start again on the shortest stereo delay thing, because I think that's just easier to demonstrate. So I'll just record some stuff in. That's nice. So let's now maybe blur that a bit, cross-modulate those a little bit, add a bit of drive. I can record that again, so I get, effectively I'm building up those sort of snapshots. The other thing that's kind of cool is I can use momentary arrays, so I can go so I'm creating kind of almost like a gating effect, which is kind of cool. Let's just add this on top just for... I'm just playing over on this. It's really interesting. Let's try that. Let's record a bit of that in. I'm going to bring the compressor bit up to... I'm going to do a bit more gating arrays. Interesting. Let's go back to my sine sound. That's nice. But you get the drift. I mean, I'm creating this just soundscape. I'm off in a world, and it's really just down to, there are minimal controls, so it means that it's very quick for you to just build a shape and a space. But as long as it's not rhythmic. Rhythmic is where it's not happening. So if you're working to a fixed meter or a fixed tempo or a fixed loop length, it's not really going to work out. The other thing that you can do is wait for this firmware update. Well, I say the other thing you can do, I mean, this firmware update will hopefully arrive and create a few more of the traditional looper type of functions in there, because it would be really cool if we could easily just kind of go, okay, I need to record a kind of, a certain bed, record that, then I can bring these other features in and maybe add that to it and create these sort of scapes, but that also have some sort of intrinsically fixed rhythmical aspect to it. Okay, well, the Cosmos Drifting Memory Station is, I think they're approaching production. It's still in pre-production. You can pre-order. Price is €480, and that's not including any taxes or shipping. So it's not a cheap thing. It is a beautifully built thing, and it's a beautifully wacky and unusual thing. And those are the things that kind of make the SOMA Laboratory and Vlad Kreimer's designs really stand out. So I would say it's kind of a luxury, unless you happen to be producing this kind of music all the time. This will enable you to just do more of that stuff. So, I would say another very interesting device from SOMA, but perhaps not for everybody. Like I say, that firmware may well bring it a little more into line with what more people would expect, make it more mainstream, in which case I think it would be more useful, definitely. If it's got more traditional looping features, absolutely go. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. I'll play out with a few more noodles, and I'll probably put some more examples up on our Patreon. You can get to that by scrolling. Going here anyway. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Mm-hmm.